Okay. We are recording. So, how was everybody today? Yeah? Yeah.
How are you?
Tired. I only got like 4 hours of sleep last night. So, the little one has a combination of a cold
Uh-oh.
and teething, which is a bad combination.
Teething's bad enough.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, man. Well, it is what it is. You get through it as best you can. Although I am so happy that Felix has got all his teeth now. It's like,
It does pass.
yeah. But, you know, that's adult life for you, right? Hey, there we go. Welcome, welcome.
She made it.
So,
something wrong with it.
did you hear the transit strike is over?
Oh, okay. They made a deal with them?
Yeah, they've reached a tentative agreement. I didn't, from the one article I read, it didn't tell who won, who lost, but, you know, I don't know.
As long as both of them agree to something, it's good.
Yes, well, I'm sure everybody is happy to get the buses back up and running. The city of the size of Hamilton, you really do need some kind of public transit service, you know.
We also need a healthcare system, but we forget about that.
It's everywhere. It's all over Canada. Like, you know, I have a ultrasound book. Like, it needs to be like, you know, investigated right now. And they give me appointment in January.
Oh my God.
End of
Oh,
January.
you're lucky.
Sarah,
End of
I'll
January.
give you a tip. We'll talk after class. I'll get you in within 2 weeks.
Thanks.
You got a travel.
Yeah, anyway. Class, yes, good. Okay, so, tomorrow there's a test.
Yeah.
So today we're doing review for the test. Last time we reviewed loops. So I think today it would make sense to move on to the next topic, which is arrays. So, any objections? Hopefully not. So, let's just make a new script so that we can bang around with a new script. Let's call it array. There we go. Open that in your favorite text editor, which of course is going to be Emacs. That's a joke for Linux people.
It should be 2D, right?
It doesn't matter. Yeah. This one's 3D, doesn't matter. We're going to spend most of today in Scripty land, so. So can anybody remind the class what the heck an array even is?
It could be a set of integers or string.
So, yes, it is a set of things.
Yep.
Yes. How do we get the things out of the set?
We store the variables there.
If we have information that has been stored in an array, how do we retrieve information from the array? We need to provide something. What do we need to provide?
An index number.
An index number. Very good. So, the correct way to think about an array is as a series of boxes call this A that have been numbered. These boxes store things. They can store anything. They can store integers, they can store floating point numbers, they can store characters, they can store strings, they can store other arrays. They can store many, many, many things. Basically anything that has an existing data type. Another thing that it's very useful to have them store is object references. But, and we got into some examples like that when we talked about objects, but for now let's talk about plain old vanilla arrays. Man, nothing wishes to load today. It's going to be one of those days, isn't it? There we go. What's new? Certainly not the fact that I'm having to click away the what's new pane once again. Ha! Joke. There is like a certain irony in the monotony of the what's new tab popping up every single time you load the program. You know?
Eventually you might read it.
Yeah. Well, I don't have that kind of time. So, does anybody remember the syntax for declaring an array? Let's do an array of integers, because that's kind of the basic and most easily understood data type. What's our syntax?
Integer.
Int,
Square bracket.
square brackets,
Number.
name of the array, right? That declares it. If we want to initialize it, how do we initialize? New. Square brace,
You can set the number of
right, the number of indices. Let's just say 10. Now, that doesn't fill all of the slots, but it does tell us how big the array needs to be and sets the memory aside for it. Right? Now, is this the number of elements or the maximum index?
number of non-elements.
So, if I was initializing this array, what would this number be? Correct. Good. You've been studying. Lovely. So, int array x is equal to new int array of size 10. Settings, gotta turn off the bloody options. IntelliCode, go away. Good. IntelliCode is my nemesis.
Professor, why you write it here? Why?
Oh, because you shouldn't, this is declaring two different
Two
arrays.
different, okay.
Yes. The fact that it's been declared with the data type here, that means that it's a different,
Array, okay.
this is a different array. Each time you have this, you have a different array. If I wished to declare the X array, yeah, maybe like this, I could then write a line, X is equal to new int of size 8.
Okay. Perfect.
right?
Yeah,
You
okay.
can split these onto multiple lines.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's useful to do so. Sometimes, for example, this line won't even be inside of your method. Sometimes this will be a public variable of the class, an instance variable of the class. In which case, you are declaring in one place and instantiating in another, right? So this, declare, this, instantiate. Very good question, thank you. Any other questions so far? Good. So, if we wanted to do an example of that, public int array y, on start y is equal to new int array of size 20. Just for the sake of argument. Make sense? Good. So, how, let's say we wanted to make it so that every element in the y array is initialized to 5. So we wanted to put 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, etc. inside of our array. How do we go about doing that? There are 2 ways. The first is to use a loop statement. The second is to declare, to declare the array using an array literal. So you can declare an array this way, right? What's one of the drawbacks?
What if it's, what if there's 100 elements in the array?
What if there are 100 elements in the array? What if there are 10,000 elements in the array? Right? This gets tiresome. Not only that, sometimes the size of the array itself will be a parameter, right? So we might have a method that takes an array size as an input, and we wish to create the array dynamically based on the input to the method, right? In that case, we don't even know how many 5s we should have there when we write this code, right? We have to abstract that detail. So while this works, it is considered the low-skill way of solving the problem. The high-skill way of solving the problem is to use a loop. Make sense? So, what type of loop should we use? You guys remember our for loop? Sure.
While and
Let's go for a for loop, because for each loops are actually, we can explore the differences, but let's go with a for loop for now. So int I is 0. I is less than what? Let's say we're doing x here.
so the x is
X dot length. Very good. What's this?
I plus plus.
Very good. Now x at I is equal to 5. This will also initialize the loop to all 5s. Now, for each loops are a little bit trickier. Let's see what happens when we try to use one. But first, let's do something to print out our 3 arrays. What was it? X dot join? I forget. There it is. String dot join, there we go. That's the one.
So we have to remember this for test 2.
No. No, you don't have to worry about remembering this for test 2. This is just the easiest way to print out the whole list all at once. This was the same code that was used in assignment, in assignment 1. There. So we'll print X. Y and Z. I and Z. Oh, by the way, it is official. I got my official work assignments for next semester, and I am teaching the web programming course for you guys next semester. So
Perfect.
we have more of each other to look forward to. It should be fun. Like, it's a bit more practical, and like the demonstrations are a bit. Most of you will probably have only interacted with video games as video games, you know, not like gotten in behind them to see how they work. But most of you, like, web pages, I imagine people are more familiar with. Like, it's a more tactile example, if that makes sense. So I think that it should go all right. We'll see how it goes. There we go. So if we run this in Unity, assuming I have no syntax errors. There we go. There we go. You can see we get all 5s, all 0s, all 5s. So the default values for y, the default value for an integer is 0. So it fills the thing with zeros before it even starts. So if your inclination was to write one of these loops and set all of the values to 0, you don't need to. It's already done for you. Make sense? So let's see what happens if we try to use a for each loop. So for each, how does it go again? Int element in y. I think that's it. If I got it right. Doesn't seem to be complaining. Let's say element is equal to 10. Right? Oh, there we go. So in Java, it will just let you do this. But in C#, we get an error if we try to do this. Cannot assign to element because it is a for each iteration variable. Essentially, this value is read-only. Can't be assigned to. And it wouldn't make sense anyways, because it's a secondary variable. So if we think of it as being a secondary variable, what we're doing is we are pulling data in from our array, placing it in the element variable until the next iteration. You know, we can imagine that if this were slightly more interesting data, right? First, the value there would be 5. We do whatever we want to it. Then the value gets overwritten for 6, etc., etc. This line here, overwriting element as 10, would overwrite only the element itself as 10. It would not affect the underlying data structure because it's not being referenced. So, Java does let you do this, but C# doesn't. Otherwise, the for loops will operate very similarly between the two languages. So you're not allowed to. When you are initializing an array, you must use a for loop or a while loop. For each loops are not permitted. So, this somewhat restricts where for each loops are applicable, right? The for each loop cannot modify the loop variable. So it's only appropriate in situations where you need to read but not modify your array. Make sense? Good. So, I suppose we should do something with the array, okay? I don't know. What do you want to do with what do you want to do with the array? What's something we can calculate?
I'm getting an error.
You're getting an error? Let's see. Valid expression term, comma. Line 14? Oh, you got 2 commas. Yeah, that'll do it.
Thanks.
That'll get you every time. So,
Okay, thank you.
you're welcome. Didn't I do a problem in the assignment, something like take the sum of all odd numbered elements in the array,
Or something like that.
something like that?
Yeah.
You want to see that one?
Yes,
Sorry.
please.
Awesome. Well, we did a rather lengthy in-class example of insertion or selection sort, or one of the sorting algorithms. So, yeah, let's do that one. First, before we do that, let's grab some random data. You guys know what DuckDuckGo is? It's an alternative search engine to Google, which is pretty good, and it doesn't track you, and also Google kind of biases your results in we're trying to sell you things kind of ways, because these guys aren't Google and they're not trying to sell things other than the search engine. I think the results they give are a little bit better and less commercial. You should use more than one search engine for different tasks, but anyway. This one turns up the best random number generator, which is actually called the best random number generator somewhere. Let's see here. Or it used to anyway. There it is. Right. In theory, you can get the same results on Google by being more specific, but this one's really cool because you can generate 100 numbers, and you can have commas between them, which you can literally just, okay, fine. You can literally copy that into source code These are the little tricks that you learn if you're a computer science professor. You know? As you can see, this is quite a lot of data. So, let's write a method to calculate the sum. I think it was average. It was
Yeah.
average of all odd numbered things. Okay. Public float odd average. Taking in an integer array in. Right? So far so good? When you want to pass an array into a method, you indicate that it's an array the same way you indicated it's an array when you declare the variable. Right? Good. So how do we calculate an average? We need to keep track of two things. What are they? Sorry, say again?
We have to separate all numbers from odd numbers from whole numbers.
Yes, we need to separate the odd from the even, but before we even get there, if we're calculating a sum, or if we're calculating an average, we need to keep track of two different things. What do we need? What are the two variables we need? Yes, one is the sum, right? Should be initialized to 0. The other?
The number of elements that you're using?
Yes. A count. Very good. Now, in this case, are we modifying the array? We shouldn't be, right? We're just reading the array and then doing some calculations about the array. We're not actually placing any data in there. So, what kind of loop can we use?
We can use for each one.
We can use a for each loop. For each int element in, oh, I should call it something other than a keyword, shouldn't I? Input. There we go. I get myself in trouble sometimes. If there's one thing that programming languages get grouchy about, it's you using their keywords as variable names. I'm sure you've all figured this out by now. So, we need to keep track of specifically the odd numbered elements. Now, I believe in the assignment I made the specification that I'm not caring that the index is odd. I'm caring that the value at that index is odd, which is a distinction, right? If I was caring only about the odd indexes, I would be pulling, oh, that's even, 0 is even, what am I doing? I would be pulling only the odd numbered indexes, regardless as to what those values contain. If I'm pulling odd values, that's an odd value, so I take it, that's an odd value, so I take it. In this example, I would be taking the opposite set of numbers, or perhaps in more correct mathematical term, I would be taking the complement of that set. So, how do we determine if something is odd? Right. Make sense? Now, what do we do? We update sum and count. Sum, yep, and count. The Does that make sense? Good. Now, because this is a for each loop, we don't have to worry about a loop variable. We don't have to worry about incrementing the loop variable. This just runs, does its thing, everybody's happy, right? If you really want to, you can do something like debug.log element, just to make sure that all of the elements that you're getting are in fact odd, right? And that you didn't like accidentally use indexes here or something. Although using indexes in this example would be impossible because we don't even have an indexing variable, right?
If we were changing those odd number and their places, then we would use index.
Right. If you had an alternative version of this that used a regular for loop, for int I is equal to 0, I is less than input dot length I plus plus, and then you basically just copy and paste the inner bit. You don't have element anymore, so you have to say input at I. Right? But you could make the mistake and say I, right? If you were to say I, then you would be going by the indexes rather than the values. And if you were going to do that, you might as well just start at 1 and count by 2, right? You would generate the indexes like that rather than, generate all indexes and specifically select some, right? Here, I'll give you a version 3 that does indexes. You'd start with an odd number, I plus equals 2, right? Then you don't even have to do this because of how numbers work, it is known how to get to the next odd number from any odd number, right? Mathematical properties. So you can simplify the code somewhat if that's what you're going for, right? But in this case, this isn't what we're going for, so we don't have to worry about it. Good. Now, all that remains is to do our return value. So, what's an average? How do you calculate?
Sum divided by counts.
Sum divided by count. Now, our inputs are all integers. Our output is a floating point number because we could get a decimal out of this. Right now, we have an integer divided by an integer, meaning this is integer division. So, there are two ways we can fix this. We either typecast one of these as a float, or we go back up and change this so that the data types of one or both of these are float. That way we get our decimal result. I can show you the difference if you want. Here. Debug.log on average of z equals on average z. There we go. for each loop. So, the odd average of Z is equal to 50. I mean, in a sense, yes. I generated 100 numbers randomly between 0 and 100. One would expect the average to be around 50, right? But 50 exactly? Like, it's getting a float out of there, right? Where's my decimal? Precisely the problem I indicated. So, if we change these to floats, save. One thing that does bother me about this website, roll a dice. Dice is the plural, die is the singular. Very annoying. It's a good random number generator though, so I'll forgive the grammar. I will forgive it, but I will complain about it.
At least they got to flip a coin right.
Yep. Yeah. As my mother used to say, I forgive, but I never forget. So. Let's see, we got all kinds of stuff going on still. So you can see, it is in fact pulling out only the odd values. And, oh, that's interesting. Well, it says we're still hitting 50 exactly. You know, it's possible we might actually be hitting 50 exactly. So, I'm going to throw the average off. 20,001, right at the end. Skew the average entirely. See how you react to this, Mr. Computer. There we go. We are getting decimals recorded, and I'll just flip that back to prove that we weren't before. Since we did actually hit 50 exactly. What are the odds? Yeah, see? No decimal component before. We change it to float, then it gets a decimal component. Good. So, does that make sense?
Yep.
Any questions about that?
Which one says, what are two variables? No.
So the way that it works, when you have the division operation, it looks at the two operands, right? And this is how it works. You kind of have a little table. Int, float, int, float, int, float, float. So if either one of the two operands going in are a float, the output will be float. It only produces int if both of the inputs are ints.
So if we just put in one as a float, it's gonna still work.
Well, don't take my word for it. Let's try it.
Yep,
There you
okay. So this will apply to everywhere, or it's just in array?
Everywhere.
Everywhere.
So there's a reason for it as well. So the programming language is hesitant to destroy data, right? if you were to take a floating point number, you know, perform a numeric calculation on it, and then automatically coerce it to an integer, the data that's here is lost, right? So it's preserving that data by keeping it as a float, right? Same thing here. Just because this one doesn't have a decimal component. Basically, all right, think mathematically, right? Think about the set of all integers, right? The set of all integers set. You guys have seen this in math classes, right? At some point, maybe? All right. So Z with this line here, this is the mathematical symbol for the set of all integers, right? You also have R, which is the set of all real numbers. Real numbers are defined how? It's basically numbers and numbers with decimal places, right? So, technically speaking, that R includes all rational and irrational numbers, right? You know what the difference between a rational and an irrational number is? Okay. A rational number can be expressed as a ratio of two other numbers, whole numbers, right? So something like 0.8372 can be expressed as a ratio of two numbers. 8,372 over 10,000, right? Rational number. Irrational numbers are numbers which must be expressed by an infinite series of non-repeating decimal digits if you express it as a decimal, right? So the most classic example of an irrational number is pi, right? Pi is 3.41, etc., 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 but that etc. does not repeat, right? There is no sequence of repeating digits inside of pi, right? Therefore, pi is an irrational number. But it's also a real number, right? So, another example of an irrational number is the square root of 2, another famous one. Another famous one is the natural number e, which is the basis of the natural logarithm. You know, a lot of these kind of physics constants and like geometric constants are like, you know, a lot of things are defined as ratios, but they don't define themselves nicely into our, you know, our Arabic numeral system, you know, which is based on the number of fingers we have. Like, you know how pi is technically defined? Anybody?
I read it a long time ago and I already forget those things because
Pi is defined as the ratio of a perfect circle's diameter to its circumference, right? Because what's the formula for the circumference of a circle? 2 pi r, right?
Yeah.
So that would be pi times d, where d is the diameter. So if you have a circle, the length of the diameter And pi is the ratio between the diameter and the circumference, right? So that is the actual technical formal definition of pi, right? And it just so happens that it's an irrational number, which I'm sure angered the Greeks just to no end, you know? Because, you know, you got some really crazy stuff like them, like forming, like the Pythagoreans forming quasi-religions around geometry and stuff like that. I'm sure the fact that that was an irrational number just drove them insane. But anyway, so anyway, getting back to this. The relationship between the integers and the real numbers is that the integers are a subset, a proper subset, of the real numbers. This is the symbol for subset. That is to say, every integer is also a real number. But the reverse is not the case. Not all real numbers are integers, right? The same is true of another set, which is also rather useful in computing, the natural numbers. The natural numbers are the set of all positive integers, including 0. Is 0 positive?
It doesn't have any value. It's positive or negative. You can.
Yes. 0 is neither positive nor negative.
That's neutral.
Yes. Although you can approach 0 from the positive or the negative direction. But, you know. So the natural numbers are a subset of the integers, right? And the integers are a subset of the real numbers. So basically, when you're performing operations, in order to not lose data, you must travel that direction. You cannot travel the other direction, or else you're losing information, right? That's why this table exists. This is what underlies the decision that any one of those two values being afloat makes the result of the calculation afloat, because you must travel this way if you don't want to lose information. Does that make sense?
Yep, yep.
A little bit of math?
Not really a lot of math. It took us like almost 3 years to understand this, and now you cover it in 15 minutes.
Well, that's math for you. Math is cool. I like math. Did you know you can define your own algebras? Yep, if you want to, you can define an algebra of jelly beans. You just select a carrier set, and then you select a bunch of operations, and boom, you have an algebra. Technically speaking, Boolean operations are an alternative algebra where the carrier set only includes true and false. So anyway, in regular mathematics, one of these is the carrier set, right? In Booleans, it's just true and false that's the carrier set. We could call that big B with a line through it if you want, the set of Booleans. All right, anyway, enough set theory, because we're supposed to be doing test review. And that's not on the test, so. All right, anybody have anything more that they'd like covered about arrays? Anybody with any issues they'd like to erase?
One more thing, can you also, if we are switching places, of index, like, so how we can do that, like, for example, we say,
Oh.
the value of 0 should go in a value, like, replace it, yes.
You wanna like swap
Yeah,
0 with
swap,
something
yeah,
else?
Yeah,
Like 0 and 5,
Yeah.
for example?
yeah.
Yeah, because that's a fundamental operation inside the bubble sort algorithm? Yes. Yeah, let's do a swap operation.
Yeah.
So, so the, we'll do something like in the lower indexes of Z, just because that's actual data. In order to swap two elements, it is necessary to declare a third piece of memory to hold on to the value temporarily until such time as you can write that back into the original position. So, let's say we wanted to swap indexes 0 and 5. First, we declare a temporary variable.
Yep.
Hold either one of index 0 or index 5. So let's say index 0. So now index 0 has been saved. We can retrieve it later. Since it's been saved, it's safe to overwrite it with the value in index 5. Now, we want to replace the value in index 5 with the value that used to be in index 0, now saved to the temporary variable. So 5 is equal to 10, and that swaps them. If we save that and execute, oh, before I do, let me just disable this, which is just a pain. There we go. Oh, interesting. It didn't do it. Why didn't you do it? Why are you disobeying me? Oh, because I used X, not Z. See, the computer is always right. The computer is always right.
Yep, it did, 82 and 52.
Boom. Make sense?
Yep.
Now, this same algorithm will work if you substitute these indexes for variables. Right? Right now, we've just hard-coded 0 and 5, but, let's say you've written some kind of,
It's an exit class, maybe? No,
I think they're shouting as an in-class exercise.
I think it's a marketing class.
Well, they're gonna be picked up on my camera, and they're not even in our room, so. Anyway, I hope they do less shouting in the future. Just trying to have a nice, quiet review class, calm. We're learning some math, everything's cool, and then people are shouting. It's not cool, it's not conducive to cool. All right, anyway. What was I even talking about?
Variables.
Variables in what context?
So you were saying that we hard-coded the.
Oh, yes. So, for example, in the bubble sort algorithm, you always want to swap the two things that are adjacent if one is greater than, if the lower one, the earlier one is greater. You want to swap them, right? So, these just become I and I plus 1. Right? Then it becomes the core swap of the bubble sort algorithm.
Can you show me?
Sure.
This is gonna be I.
Yeah.
And this is gonna be I, and the other one would be I plus,
Yeah,
I plus one.
I plus 1, and I plus 1.
So it's gonna.
So that's the core swap inside the bubble sort algorithm. We do that when? When do we swap?
When it was,
When they're in the wrong order.
oh, yeah.
Right?
One of these people.
So, wrong order here being defined as the one with the lower index being greater than the one with the higher index. We can write that as an if statement. If z at I is greater than z at I plus 1, so annoying. That's because I haven't declared I yet. There we go. There's your core of the bubble sort algorithm with the if statement. Now, literally, all we need to do to complete bubble sort, write 2 loops. Since we're here anyway, let's do it. For int I is equal to 0, or, well, I'm gonna need 2, actually. I know this is confusing, but I'll make the outer loop j. J should loop until it's at, let's sort z dot length less than length minus 1, j plus plus. Sock that in there. But of course, the bubble sort algorithm is a double loop for int I is equal to 0, I is less than or equal to j, I plus plus. There we go. Does that make sense? So, let's do a small trace. Small trace, small array. Let's say we have 5 elements, 8, 3, 2, 9, 1. All right? So, we keep I or j as the outer loop, I as the inner loop, right? And length, well, length is a constant, right? Length is equal to 5. So, we start off our loop. J is equal to 0. Next, I is equal to 0. Right? Now, we take a look, examine I and I plus 1. I and I plus 1.
0 plus 1 is 1.
0 plus 1 is 1. Where are we? Yes, 0 plus 1 is 1. Yes. We're examining these. Are they in the wrong order?
Yeah.
Then we swap them. 3 and 8. Then we increment I. We're now examining these 2. Are they in the wrong order?
Yeah.
Then we swap them. 2 and 8. Now we examine these 2 because I is now 2. Right?
Yeah.
Are they in the wrong order?
No.
Okay, so we leave them alone. Next one. I is 3. Is I think I may have messed up my condition.
let's see here.
I think it has to be,
Greater than or less than something?
I must be less than z dot length minus 1 minus j. All right, I think that'll work better. So we can calculate that, right? Length minus j, or yes, length minus 1 minus j will in this case be 4, right? So that's fine. On iteration 3, this is a swap, yes?
Yeah.
So we swap. 1 and 9, there we go. Next, I is incremented to 4. We now hit the condition, right? Is it true that 4 is less than 4? It is not true. Therefore, we break that loop and we increment j. Right? J is now 1. We start the inner loop again,
For the j.
reinitializing I to 0.
Yep.
Yeah. For j is equal to 1. So I is now 0 again. Our stopping condition, let's just pre-compute this because we're humans. The computer doesn't need to, but it's helpful for us. So it's 5 minus 1 minus 1 this time, right? Which is 3. So we examine these. Are these in the wrong order?
Yeah.
Yep, so we swap. 2, 3. Increment I. Are these in the wrong order?
Yeah.
Nope. So we move on. Are these in the wrong order?
Yep.
So we swap. Now, we increment I. Is 3 less than 3?
Which is wrong.
It is not. So, we reset our loops and increase j. Now, I is 0. Are these in the right order?
Yes.
So we skip. Are these in the right order?
No.
No. So we swap. Our pre-computed value will have changed to 2. Is 2 less than 2? No. So we reset I to 0, j increases to 3. Next. We examine these, swap. Knowing this, looking at it, we now know that this is completely, this is a sorted array. If we take a look here, our stopping point is now 1. Once that swap is finished, I becomes 1, right? I is not less than 1, or 1 is not less than 1. So we now stop that loop right there, right? Increment j to 4. Now, let's look at j's stopping condition, right? J's stopping condition is j is less than 5 minus 1 in this case. So we now have 4 is less than 4 as our loop condition on the outer loop. Therefore, j is also done. And our array is sorted. So our algorithm is complete. And our result is computed. And that is bubble sort. Any questions? Yes?
Do we need to know this for the test? Like bubble sort, insertion sort, selection sort?
I'm not going to be focusing on testing you for knowledge of specific algorithms. I will be testing you on syntax, and I will be testing you on, can you write something to do something simple? right? Producing a sorting algorithm is beyond beyond what I would expect you to do on a test at this point in time.
Thank you.
But once you get to algorithms in second year, I absolutely would expect that of you.
But there's no second year programming class.
For us.
Well, you do take a data structures and algorithms course.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Surprise!
Shocking.
So
I think it's the third year, the third semester, right?
I think so, yeah.
Are you
Who knows? You
doing
might
that?
have that for me. You might have that with me as well. We'll see how it goes. Yeah. So
Okay.
the
so
purpose of this.
we're-
The purpose of this is it's a useful mental exercise to do a double loop on an array, right? It's basically an algorithm that like goes through an array multiple times to do something, right?
It says semester 4.
Sorry?
It says semester 4, data structures.
Semester 4? Yep. Have fun. It is a fun class. Actually, data structures and algorithms is it's the most fun class of all of the classes. It is the one class that will take you, break you into pieces, and reform you in the image of a software engineer. That is the knowledge that makes a programmer in that class. This even what we're doing right now, this is still child's play. You still don't know anything. You do not yet know anything that you couldn't have learned from an online tutorial / a book, like the Dummy's Guide to Programming in C#, right? Once you learn data structures and algorithms, you will have real programming knowledge. But you have to be educated first. You have to learn so that you may appreciate it.
Can you delete all of this because we don't need it for the test? Can you go back to the simple method of
I'll do you one better. I'll comment it and say, this is not for the test, but a good example anyways. All right, and just to prove that it works, because you know me, I always like to prove that it works.
Oh, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Yeah.
Oh, so that random number generator was literally generating me all of the numbers between 1 and 100. That's why the average came out to exactly 50. So, there you go.
100 numbers.
So it worked. It's slow, but it works. That's bubble sort for you. Slow, very quick to implement, works all right, but it's quite slow. Anyway, so any more about arrays? Shall we talk about objects? Okay. So, classes and objects in object-oriented programming. I'm going to make a new file for this. I think I'm going to disable all the debugs here, just so that we have a fresh canvas on which to paint our beautiful music,
Are you gonna post this?
without question. It's also being video recorded.
But would you be able to post the videos? Can you?
Oh yeah.
Can you email us today?
Oh, I forgot to send you the link. Oh, I'm sorry. The link to the YouTube channel, yeah.
But did you post it on YouTube channel?
Yep.
Okay.
Is it?
Yep, here. Go to YouTube. YouTube.com. For some reason, Nick Moore Master comes up. That's how it comes up. Little pixel me. You can see intro programming for digital health. I've got a couple of videos up there now.
Oh, there are 38 views already.
I don't have any idea who would be viewing it, but I hope they find something useful in it.
They can see rainbow.
Just the back of your head though. And whatever's going on your screen.
Oh,
And they can see my cake too.
So just, don't play video games in my class, please. Yeah, so I wonder if that happens if I take Mohawk College. Do I still come up? I do still come up. Nick Moore, Mohawk College. There we go. So, yep. You can also watch the other classes I teach if you really want to. And oh, hello. It's quite the thumbnail. Yeah, this is the Halloween special where I was in my vampire costume. Yeah. There you go.
We were off that day.
Yep. But I recorded it for posterity.
Professor, I have a question. So our exam will be.
Oh yeah, I got the examining schedules. I haven't looked at it yet though, because it's been a crazy week.
The exams from top or start to finish?
Yeah,
when,
exam will be cumulative.
when's the exam for this class?
I don't know, I haven't looked at the schedule. I will look at I'm a bit behind on my email, as some of you may have understood. I will make every effort to get that cleaned up before the end of the week and get you when your exam actually is. It will be sometime during exam week,
Like 14, 15 December.
something like that.
I hope it's not like,
It
scheduled.
will be
and
on
then-
Friday.
Oh, are we on Friday?
It's
Or,
the last day.
oh, lovely.
It's on the last day.
Actually, our class is Monday, Thursday, and Friday.
So it's gonna be either Friday. But the networking, he said it's gonna be either on Tuesday or Wednesday.
Tuesday.
Yeah, Tuesday, right?
So it could be.
I can't just look it up.
It can be any day.
Just give me a moment, I'll check my email.
Did he say something?
Who?
Douglas? The networking,
That's what I heard.
nothing special today?
Something special.
We finished the slides for the
Yeah,
first time.
that's special
He's finished the slides
For the first
Yeah.
time.
first time?
in a class.
But did you guys understand it?
I mean, repeating.
So I said rather,
We took a lot tomorrow.
I was having an issue in my eye, I said rather sleeping in a closet than sleep at home.
But there is security is special.
And the
Security.
Yeah, okay, that's good. So it's not recorded, sorry.
It is, I think it is.
Nobody's gonna watch it, don't worry. Except for all those 32 people, all those 32 randos. Hi, randos.
Please come. Please
Please come back.
Oh, no, I don't do any video editing.
No, the whole world will know.
Not even a little bit. Like Willy Wonka, my videos must never be touched by human hands. I meant his Willy Wonka's chocolate, not Willy Wonka himself. Although he seems like a personality type, to be honest.
Are they gonna give us an exam schedule for all our classes, or is,
I think I can look it up. Just give me a moment. Exam schedule. Yeah, I think I'm given. Let's see here. I was recently. Final examination spreadsheet is targeted to go out week of November 13th. That would be this week. I don't think they've quite gotten it yet. Here's an email. We are asking that our faculty do not send out the final exam information to students at this time. It has been brought to our attention that there were some errors in scheduling for CSATE courses. We are connecting with scheduling to get a clean final exam schedule. In the meantime, please hold off of communicating this information to students. Once we have the updated schedule, we will let you know. That was communicated on the 7th. So the final exam is not yet, final exams are not yet finally scheduled. Kind of late in the semester to not, but you know what it is actually. 2 of the schedulers in the department have had to go on like long-term sick leave for a number of weeks, or like I think a month and a half in one case. So like all of the scheduling is currently being done by one person, January, who is like just losing her mind with it because it's work for 3 people and she's doing all of it herself. So if things are a little behind, like that's the reason. So basically anything I tell you might be subject to change anyway, so probably best not to tell you until it's finalized. That's okay? Sorry?
Can they schedule 2 exams on one day?
Mm-hmm.
I believe so,
They can do that?
yeah.
Yeah,
I think they
why not?
I
don't want networking and programming that ends up in one day, otherwise I would lose my mind. I'm okay with other non-networking or programming now. Because I cannot focus I need to focus on one thing at a time.
I know.
Can we change it if we have something like this? Can we ask you to change it for us?
No, I'm completely at the mercy, I'm as much at the mercy of the schedule as you are. I will say, for the time being, in the preliminary schedule, this class is on the Friday, networking fundamentals is on the Tuesday. Yes, digital health fundamentals is on the Wednesday. That's the preliminary schedule. Yeah. Programming fundamentals 15th, networking fundamentals 12th, digital health 13th. But again, preliminary schedule, still subject to change. Who the heck knows? Usually these schedules are mostly finalized and you have a 90% chance of not having any changes going through a revision step like this. So for those 3 courses at least, it doesn't look like you have anything on the same day, so yeah. But yeah, subject to change without notice and notice without change. When I get the final exam schedule, I'll let you know.
Thank you.
Yeah, but yeah, there you go. I gave you information I wasn't supposed to give you. That's how nice I am.
And now it's been recorded as well.
Yep, and it's recorded. See, the internet knows I'm a nice person. Yeah. Yeah, just with the understanding that that's not the final schedule, right? It's probably pretty close, but it might change substantially because they're still working on it. Okay, good. So, shall we talk about objects then?
Yeah.
As you can tell, I'm pretty casual about what ends up in my videos. Haven't been fired yet. Let's make a new script, call it objects. Just slap it on main camera. So, can anybody remind us what the difference between a class and an object is?
Class is what the group, object is a specific thing use class.
Right. So, the class is the blueprint for the construction of an object. So, you can think of it like in strictly construction terms, you know? I have it's the difference between a blueprint for a building and an actual building. Obviously, you can build multiple buildings to the same blueprint, right? The same relationship exists with classes. We have the mono-behavior inheriting script classes that we've been using for everything so far. When you're in an object-oriented environment, you can't really get away from objects. You can just ignore them until you know what they are, right? And that's what we did for most of the class. We ignored what classes and objects were until now when we know what they are, right? So, to write your own class, you can do this inside of another script file. The other quick place that you can do this, you can create a new C# script, my class. Classes which are created in this manner are accessible everywhere, even though a specific instance of the script hasn't been attached to a specific game object. So, to make a new class, public class, I don't even know what we're making a class of. What are we making a class of, folks?
A car.
A car, good. Car. So, classes have two things. What are they?
It's location,
Field.
return, like, their position.
Game objects do.
Oh, yeah, no, not that, class.
Yeah, not a class. So the two main components, variables, member variables, instance variables, or fields, and methods. The constructor is a type of method. So we've got properties and we have actions, right? What's a property that a car can have?
Engine.
Body.
That's
Body.
so an engine is a pretty complicated thing. I would be inclined to make that another class that the car gets one of, right? So we can do that. Public class engine, right? Leave it blank for now. And then the car will have an engine. Now, is a car's engine private or public?
It's public. Oh, no, it's private.
Yeah,
It's private.
unless you're a mechanic,
Yeah,
right?
it's private.
All of the stuff that forms the interface, that's all public. But the internal mechanisms, of which an engine in a car is a good example,
Private.
those tend to be private. Good. What else does a car have?
Color.
Tires and a color? Yep.
A body.
Sure. Let's do the color first. Should color be private or public?
Public.
Yeah, it's like when you look at the car, you see the color, right? So public, string, color. I'm just gonna do that way, sure. Tires, public, because they interface with the road. Just the number of tires, sure. You could have a regular four-wheel car, or you could have the three-wheel car off of Mr. Bean, you know. Good, that's good enough for now. What are things that cars do?
Drive.
Drive. So, public, void, drive.
But this is it's a constructor, right, not a variable.
This is not yet a constructor. This is just a method.
Okay.
Yeah. What's another thing that a car can do?
Stop.
Yep. Public. Void, stop, sure. Both of which will use the engine, right?
And tires.
Mm-hmm. Methods are also things you do to the object. So, how do we change the color of a car? Right, or repaint. Public, void, repaint. Now, if we are repainting the car, whatever is doing the repainting is going to know what color it's repainting the car to. It makes sense to take that as a parameter, right? You want to repaint it with string new color. Then, our color can be assigned our new color. Make sense? With these methods, we kind of need a bit more information, right? A thing that all cars have is a position in space and various other properties of the physical environment, like speed and acceleration, right? Unity will model these using transform objects and rigid bodies, right? But let's leave Unity out of it for the time being. But, you know, did we do like effects on rigid bodies at all in class?
Just to show.
I showed you like the example with all the balls rolling around.
Yeah.
But you can also, like, there's more you can do with rigid bodies than just that, right? Very, very quickly. Very quick example. Let's make a new 3D object, capsule, sure. Give it a rigid body. Now I'm going to constrain it so that it can't move in the y plane. Or I suppose I could just turn gravity off as well. I'm going to do both. So no gravity, and the thing can't move outside of, like it can't move in the y direction, and only x and z. So it should stay in this plane that we see here, right? Now, it'll just, compiler error. Yes, that it's going to complain about those. It just hangs in space. Now, if I wanted to add a control script, imagine I just wanna like WASD around, right? Grabbing its position and manipulating it by position is not the most effective way of interacting with the object in a physics sense. You're just moving the thing's position in space. You're not accurately simulating acceleration or velocity or anything like that. So, if I pull up my control script, right? Let's say float power, public float power. If input dot get key, what is it? Key code dot up arrow. It's not auto completing for me for some reason.
Because you turned it off last time.
No, I didn't turn off that. I turned off the IntelliCode,
Oh,
which is like the little gray stuff. Let me see if turning it back on works. If so, I will be really, really annoyed. Edit. What is it? Properties, settings, tools, options. Telecode. Sure. Turn you back on. Light computer. Down arrow. Still not really doing anything. Right. And left. Save that and see if Unity is complaining. Really? I got it right? Amazing. So you can have public rigid body, I'm just going to call it R. The rigid body object has a it has methods which allow you to add forces rather than just manipulating position. So r dot add force, you then provide the vector that the force is, the vector is the magnitude and also the direction. So let's say power multiplied by transform dot forward. Down will be transform dot backward. Right will be right. Left will be left. Rigid body. Aha, it has a capital A. Transform up or forward. CPU. Right. Forward, back, left, right. Right. maybe I'm messing up vector 3 versus transform. Transform, let's take a look. Properties. Right, yeah. Oh, here's the, okay, all right. It may not have back, but it does have negative forward. It might not have right, but it does have, left, but it does have negative right. All right, so I need to hook up the rigid body of the capsule to its own script. Script right there. Give it a non-zero power, say 3. There we go. And now, dun da 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 dun.
Whoa.
Now you see, it's quite. You guys want to try? You really can't like do it from seeing. You got to feel how it. You got to see how it feels. You know. But it's like very greasy. Very greasy. Try it. Come on. Try it. Come on. Come on.
You guys are scared.
Yeah. Oh, it's off screen. You can just reset the simulation. Error keys. See how greasy it is? That's because all it's doing is like adding force in one direction versus another.
Ooh.
Right?
It's greasy.
It's extremely greasy.
Overshot that one.
Let's see. So up, down.
Yep, just the arrow keys. Right? Because all it's doing is adding force. But it's not really like here's the issue, right? We need to add drag. So we're off to infinity.
You just press it one and it's going.
Yeah, it will continue.
Yeah, it's because it's kind of like, it's slipping on an oil or something.
Yes. So the easy way to fix that, just add a bunch of drag. If you add drag or friction, that's still not a lot, right? But it does slow it down. If you add a bit more drag, something like that, right?
Yeah.
So that's much better because it interacts with the physics system, because you're actually using the physics system, so you don't end up with like balls that are clipping inside of physics objects, because you are literally, like when you're just manipulating position, you are literally taking the position of the object, clipping it inside of the box that's the collider, and then the game engine's like, nope, forces it back out in the next frame, right? This allows you to prevent it from entering collidable objects. So, for example, cube, make that a collidable object.
Oh.
Right? See how it is actually constrained to, here, let me move this a little bit. Yeah. So, here's the issue though, right? forward and backward have been defined relative to the object. So when it flips upside down, the controls also reverse.
But the attachment is not just upside down, it's circulate. And how can I control the arrow keys?
Well, you kind of just need a slightly more effective system. Here, let me modify the capsule so that it has a forward. Red is forward, right? Let's add a cylinder. Man, they are playing stuff really loud over there.
By the way, it's rigid body,
There we go.
it's also included in the mark quiz? No.
Nope. 5, there we go. Maybe move it forward. Move it forward a bit. And there we go. Now he's got a nose, right? So now we know which way is forward. So what you can do, rather than, this is what tank controls are. Rather than adding force in the left and right directions when you press right arrow up, right and left arrow, what you want to do is you want to spin it. So what you want to do is apply torque in the Y direction. You guys know what torque is? Torque is rotational force. Like a torque wrench, right? So R dot add torque. Power, sure, times transform dot up. And then for the other one, negative O, which should be down. Oh, semicolon. There we go. So now, left and right. May not be enough power. Let me public float rotational tower. Let's see here. Rotational power, let's make that something larger. Left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, come on. Spin. Spin for daddy. It's still moving back and forward. Oh, I've actually attached it to his side. It's kind of funny. Oh, well that would do it. Y rotation's been frozen. So, let's uncheck that constraint, try it again. Oh, and it still needs power. Power! There we go. Move close to camera and spin! Too much power. Okay. So now, if we spin, we should get, still, you know. I think I technically attached his nose to the Z axis, but, alright, now, if we move this into his path, Let's see what we get. Right? Now,
But what about, he would not have that much power to move the cube away from him?
the cube does not move.
Oh, okay.
So here's the thing though, right? Oh, I need to fix his nose. I need to fix his nose. Because right now it's wrong.
Scotty, we need power.
Sorry, I had to do that.
There. What was that? What was
Scotty, we need power.
Oh yeah. All right. Now the nose is inside his face. All right. Let's see. Out.
Spin.
So there we go. So the way that I've configured it, forward is relative to the game object. So if I press forward, he will go in the direction his nose points. Right? If I increase the angular drag on here a little bit, maybe to 1, we now have a system where we can go to, now that's still not enough drag. It needs to be more of a drag. There we go. You can find and go to different locations. Does anybody want to try it?
Do you wanna try Ryan?
Try what?
Do you want to try the simulation?
Sure.
So it's basically,
Just, here, please.
Array.
Well, it does eventually slow down and stop. And you always try, like, up is the direction of his nose. Anybody else want to try? But yeah, the cube isn't a rigid body, so yeah, it's static. It only sticks there in space. Another way of putting it, there's nothing doing physics calculations on it. All it's being used for is to determine collision events with something that that does have physics events. So, you know, this thing has speed and it has acceleration and it has a position that moves, but this thing does not have velocity or acceleration.
Can I move it, right or left?
No, you can only move backwards or forwards and spin. So yeah, physics.
Cool.
All right, I guess that's the end of class.
Rudy, would you please explain about the inheritance again?
Okay, here's the 30-second version of inheritance. When you write a class, you are describing a group of objects, right? When you have a class inherit from that class, you are saying the derived class, the class doing the inheriting, gets all of the properties of the base class, plus a few of its own.
Okay, so my question is, sometimes we use colon and the parents class, but some statements colon and base. So what is the difference?
So in the colon base exists in the constructor,
In the construct.
only in the constructor. The base keyword allows you to pass parameters to the constructor of the base class.
And can you just explain the one thing about instantiating an object?
Sure. So the class name, right? You have to have a class name. Class Q equals new class. That's the line, right? You'll see this looks very similar to creating an array, right? This is a call to the class's constructor, right? This is called a reference variable, and this is what we consider the object to be, the object that is created, right? Technically speaking, it's a reference to the created object, but most of the time, in common parlance, we consider that to be the object. So I create an object Q by calling the constructor of the class. Make sense? Any other questions? Yes?
Can you give an example of where you would use a do and do while loop? Like the difference?
Sorry,
A
use
do
which?
loop and a do while.
Oh, a do and a do while. So a while loop is used anytime you need 0 or more executions of the inside bit of the loop. A do while always executes at least once. There is a class that wants to get into this room, so we gotta leave. Oh shoot, I need to post the code. Post the code, post the code, post the code. Oh shoot. Dang it, all right.
Don't panic, don't panic.
Don't panic. But also panic.
The other one too, the array and.
Yep. Boom, 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 boom. Send to compress. There we go.
Yeah.
Rename. Oh, there we go. All right. Fundamentals, announcements. New announcement. Today's code.
Sometimes you have like
Add file containing all of our code. Boom. No. No, you stupid machine. Publish. Message required. Arg. Publish. There we go.
And Professor, you will post this video as well, right?
I will, yes. All right. Good work, troops. We'll make programmers out of you yet.